Okay, so good evening, everyone. Let me share my screen. We are back to the Spirits book. And last week, we started and almost finished the separation of the soul and body at the moment of discarnation. But just to a little recap, when the body separates from the soul, the physical body dies, the spirit separates from the physical body. Normally, the spirit goes through a period of that it is unconscious. It's not aware of the process. There is a team of spirits that assist in the separation. We mentioned, like if you go to a hospital, you don't know any doctors, but you go to the ER, you are received and assisted by a team of doctors that probably don't know you also. It's the same thing with the team of spirits that are responsible for the process of discarnation and takes care of each one of us. Of course, that's different from your loved ones that you are going to meet. They are your loved ones that are in condition of receiving you there, will be there if it's possible for them. And we gave the example when it's not possible, like André Luiz and his grandfather that was in the lower zones, consumed with thoughts with money. So of course his grandfather wouldn't be there to receive him, but his mother was there to receive him. So depending on the condition of the spirit, they'll be there to receive us. So the separation is done cord by cord until the last one, which is the silver cord that is connected to the chakra on the top of our head. It takes up to 72 hours to complete separate the physical body from the perispirit, but it can take much less. And we gave examples, someone that has been sick for a long time and it's already here and there, half here and there. The disconnection is much faster than someone young that dies in an accident, but it never takes more than 72 hours. And again, the separation of the physical body from the spiritual body plus the spirit from the physical body is different from your mental connection to your physical body. You may remain attached through your mind to your physical body for a very long time. That's why we see many spirits in cemeteries, because they don't know where to go. They stay close to their physical bodies. They don't know anything else. But there are no links, material links between the spiritual body plus spirit and the physical body. It's just in the mind, our mind playing tricks on us. Okay, so that's the basis of it. If you have any questions, we can address them, but we have the two last ones. We are on 161. Can you read it for us, Philip?
Yes.
Thank you.
In the event of violent or accidental death, when the organs have not been deteriorated by age or disease, does the separation of the soul and the end of organic life occur at the same time? Usually, and at any rate, the interval between them in such cases is very brief.
Meaning, the physical body dies in an accident, a violent or accidental death. So the physical body no longer works. That's why something happened and it caused it to die. So the separation is usually fast. Again, this connection can take some time, but it doesn't take more than 72 hours. And in the vast majority of the cases, the spirit is not aware of what's going on because the spirit is unconscious. Okay. One thing here that is mentioned, organs have not been deteriorated by age or disease. Elmo mentioned this last week, but it's good to repeat for those that were not here last week. Let's say someone donates organs, and there is a question sometimes that people will ask, do the spirit fuse when the organs are removed? Well, donating your organs, you are doing a charitable action. If you are doing a charitable action, you are protected by the spirits And you, of course, will not feel anything that will happen to your physical body, even if the physical body and the perispirit are still loosely connected by some cords, some links, okay? So that's important for us to understand also, that if you are doing something charitable as donating your organs, you are never going to feel anything, because a positive action causes a positive reaction, which is you avoiding to feel any pain or anything, okay? Important to understand that also, okay? Questions, comments here?
I just have to ask, when we had the 9/11, that so many people jumped out of the World Trade Center, did they say the souls separated before they hit the ground, or that was just...
It's in those cases, and we are going to they talk about this the next question. In those cases, what happens is that you lose conscience. You lose conscience. Yes, so you don't feel anything. Okay. Especially in those cases that you know, those were victims. They were not committing suicide. They were jumping out of desperation because the building was burning, and they were desperate. So it's not a suicide per se. It's a desperation act. So when something like this happens, and in many cases of accidents like that, you lose consciousness. You don't feel anything.
Consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
and you know, the best example for us to understand that, when someone has a heavy accident, gets injured, and they go into a coma, and they wake up, let's say 2 days later, they don't remember the accident. No, they don't remember feeling anything. The pain starts when they wake up, as they become aware of their physical body. So it's exactly the same. The only thing is that you don't awake here, you awake on the other side. So you may feel the effects of what you had before, but if it's an accident, you are not going to feel the effects of the accident. Let's say, you know, you jump from, like you said, you jump from the building, you're by desperation, your body's crushed when you hit the ground. Your perispirit is not going to be affected, okay? And your mind.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's important to understand that. Yes. Okay. Anyone else?
Yes.
Okay. And the next question talks a little bit about it more. So, Philip.
162. After decapitation, does a person retain any form of consciousness? They frequently do for a few minutes until organic life of the body is completely dead. The fear of death often causes people to lose consciousness before their demise. This question simply refers to the awareness that victims may have of themselves as a person and not as a spirit. If they have not lost this awareness before death, they may retain it for a few moments afterwards, but only for a very short period of time, which must cease with the end of the brain's organic life. The termination of human consciousness by no means implies the clean separation of the perispirit from the body. On the contrary, when death has resulted from violence and not the gradual extinction of life, the bonds tying the body to the perispirit are tighter, and the release is completed more slowly.
Okay, so there's a lot of information here that I think it's important for us to understand. First, why Kardec asked about decapitation? Because it was common at that time. And remember, France had the guillotine very recently. So a guillotine was still in use, and I think they used guillotine in France until the 20th century. I don't know exactly when they abolished it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, well, like here, you still have the death penalty in this country. That you have, I think it was some states still have hanging or something like that. No, I don't know. I'm not sure. So, so Kardec asking about decapitation is very appropriate for the time that he asked. What the Spirit tells us here that the person may frequently do any conscious for a few minutes, meaning for the moments that it takes from the spirit to separate from the physical body, which is very fast in this case because you're losing your head, you may have some form of consciousness, but a very confused state, and not really pain. You don't feel any pain. You just feel the threat of it, the panic of it, and a few after effects. But normally, as the Spirit says here, the fear of death often causes people to lose consciousness before their demise again. So like what happens, what I just told Paco about those that that were falling from the buildings on 9/11, right?
They jumped out.
Yeah, they jumped, but for desperation. And then the explanation from Kardec, again, we need to separate the disconnection between the physical body and the spiritual body, and the consciousness of it, which are separate things, and our mental connection to our physical body, which is a separate thing, right? And then that's when Kardec says that when a death is resulted from violence, the bonds tying the bonds to the perispirit are tighter, and the release is completely more slowly. But that's the technical aspect of it, not the conscious aspect of it. Okay, I'm going to repeat this 1,000 times because it's important for us to understand. The technical aspect of the separation is different from our consciousness of the process and our understanding. The best description of it was done by Brother Jacob in the book I Came Back, which is unfortunately not translated, that I mentioned many times. He was aware because he has to be aware so he could tell the story. But even him, who was allowed to be half aware, was not really completely conscious. He gives some reports on it, like feeling two hearts beating in two different bodies, like feeling very strange sensations, because he was not completely unconscious. But he was not completely conscious, because it's not possible to remain completely conscious at the time of the separation of the physical body and the spiritual body. Okay? And we are going to enter into spirit confusion, which is the next item, which is exactly how they describe this process of going from the physical life to the spiritual life. Okay.
Okay. Spirit confusion. Does the soul immediately regain self-consciousness upon leaving the body? Not immediately. It is in a state of confusion.
Read the next.
164. Do all spirits experience the confusion that follows the separation of the soul from the body to the same degree and for the same span of time? No. This depends on their elevation. The person who is already purified recovers consciousness almost immediately because they have already freed themselves from the shackles of materiality during physical life. However, a more materialistic person whose conscience is not clear remains branded with the impression of matter for a longer period of time.
Okay. So if anyone wants to understand the process better, more detail, I recommend a book that we already studied, the fourth book of the André Luiz collection, Life in the Spiritual World, Workers of the Eternal Life. There are 5 cases of discarnation and how the spirits work on these 5 cases. All of us, we enter into a state of confusion when we leave our physical body. We enter in a dreamlike state. I think it's the best. It's not a accurate comparison, but it's a more accurate comparison. When you wake up in the morning that you don't know really where you are, on what you are doing, especially if you travel and the first day you wake up on the other place, strange place, you are kind of, for a few seconds, you are lost, you're confused. So you can apply this to the separation. And the second question talks about the length of the state of confusion. And we know that depends on how much you are attached to your physical body, how much you understand life in the spiritual world, meaning spirituality, and how much you are prepared intellectually, that we are going to address in the next question. So let's say a spirit like Chico Xavier that discarnated when he was 92 years old, very weak, already living half there and half here and half there. Very fast, he woke up on the other side. And again, very fast, I'm not saying 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, but it doesn't take much more than that. 1 day, 2 days, he wakes up on the other side and he recovers his conscience, he recovers his strength that he didn't have here, and he's ready to go. Because that's a person that lived his whole life in spirituality, working to the assistance of others, and really had no attachment to the physical body per se. That's one extreme. We go to the other extreme, someone that is 100% materialistic, live their whole life cultivating the physical body as their temple, and doesn't think of anything else besides the physical body. This person dies, let's say at an accident. It will take a long time for them to regain conscience or leave the state of confusion, because for a long time they will still think that they are alive. They will still think, they will see their spiritual body and they'll think that it's their physical body. They don't know anything else. So we had a couple of those, and carols, right? You remember, right? Spirits that go to our meetings and say, I'm seeing myself. How am I dead? I'm seeing myself perfectly. I'm not dead. And we always say, no, you're not dead. Exactly this. That's why you're talking to me. But the physical body is dead. If we can say that, we say. So this is the other extreme. It may take years, decades in this state of confusion, because it depends on how the spirit will be avail themselves to be helped and assisted and understand. But in the middle are all the others, right? So for those, let's say, for those that are believing life in the spiritual world, but are waiting to go, expecting to go to heaven or hell or purgatory, they will understand, but the confusion is that they won't find themselves where they expected to be after death. So they will continue to be in a state of confusion until they understand the process of how life is in the spiritual world. So they will continue to be in a state of confusion for some time. Of course, each discarnation is different, and each person is different. Let's say someone that, again, one of the cases of Workers of Life Eternal, that he was ready to go, but he was not ready to go because there were some things that he was leaving behind that he wanted to solve. I don't remember which case of was. I don't know if Helmo remembers. So he was ready to go, but he didn't want to go. He wanted to stay to solve the few problems remaining in his physical life. So it caused him a lot of difficulty in the transition because of that. Okay. And then we have the case on one of the ladies there that was a very religious person, I think evangelical, if I'm not mistaken, but a very good person, very elevated spirit, and the transition was very easy. She woke up on the other side and was ready to continue working, right? There were 5 cases, 2 of them were completely ready for the other side, and 3 of them in different degrees were much more difficult. And I think it's an interesting book because it covers one that was Catholic, one that was a Spiritist, one that was evangelical. You cover all because that's not what makes the difference. The difference, of course, in Spiritism is that we are aware, we understand the process, we are more prepared intellectually, but are we more prepared morally and mentally? It depends on each one of us, right? Okay. Comments, questions? Okay, so what I just briefly mentioned is what Kardec asks next.
165. Does the knowledge of Spiritism have any influence on the duration of this state of confusion? It has a substantial influence on its duration because the spirit acquired a prior understanding about its new situation. However, the practice of righteousness and a clear conscience have the most influence. When death arrives, everything is chaotic at first. The soul is stunned, similar to when a person wakes from a deep sleep and needs time to establish its bearings and fully comprehend the situation. It gradually regains clarity and the memory of the past as the influence of the material envelope that it has recently shed weakens, and the fog that obscured its consciousness clears. The duration of confusion following death varies greatly. It may be a few hours, several months, or even years. Those who, during their human lives, have closely identified themselves with their future state do not remain confused for long because they are able to gain quicker understanding of their situation. This confusion is completely dependent on specific features and the type of death. In cases of violent death, suicide, torture, accident, stroke, injuries, and so on, the spirit is shocked and does not believe that it is dead. It stubbornly maintains the contrary and views the body that it has left as something separate from itself. It recognizes its body and cannot understand how it could be separated from it. It remains among those it has loved, speaks to them, and does not understand why they do not hear it. This illusion lasts until the perispirit has fully separated from the physical body. It is only when this is accomplished that the spirit begins to understand that it no longer is part of the physical world. This phenomenon is easy to explain. With death occurring unexpectedly, the spirit is stunned by the sudden change that has taken place. Death is still equivalent to destruction for the spirit, and it thinks that it cannot possibly be dead. This illusion is still further reinforced by seeing itself with a body similar to the one it has left, because it does not immediately preconceive its eternal nature and believes that it is solid just as it was in the corporal world. When its attention is called to this point, it is shocked to discover that it is not tangible. This phenomenon is similar to what happens in cases of somnambulists or hypnotized people who cannot believe that they are asleep. For them, sleep is synonymous with a suspension of their faculties, and since they can see clearly and think freely, they feel awake. Some spirits experience this feeling, even in cases where death was expected. However, it is much more common in those who, despite being ill, did not expect to die. Sometimes a spirit may even attend its own funeral as though it were that of someone else, speaking as if it were someone else until it finally sees the truth. The confusion that follows death is in no way painful for people who have lived an honest life. They are calm and feel as if they are peacefully waking out of slumber. However, people whose conscience is not clear are brimming with anxiety and anguish, and this only heightens as they gain full cognizance. In cases of a collective death, in which many individuals have died together in the same catastrophe, they do not always see one another immediately afterwards. Each spirit goes its own way in the confusion following death, or only worries about those in whom it takes an interest.
Okay, let's break down this. So we briefly mentioned, right, the knowledge of spiritism has an influence, and the spirits are very clear. It has a substantial influence on its duration. Why? Because when you understand about your situation, it's much easier for you to accept it. So what we study here, the understanding of life in the spiritual world, the process of discarnation, what happens, what you should expect when you wake up on the other side, all this will help our transition. But as the spirits say here, the practice of righteousness and a clear conscience have the most influence. Why? Because if you did your part on the moral evolution, and you are with a clean conscience that you have done your part, again, it doesn't really need to be that you are not, we always have things we regret. That's part of who we are. But it cannot be something that obsesses us. That's when we create problems. If it's, I should have treated my parents better than I did, but we still have time. It's something that seems, this small guilty conscience that we have, these are not the ones that are going to cause much pain to us in most of the cases. So when we are more evolved morally, we have the assistance of the spiritual benefactors. We have the assistance of our loved ones that we always have, but we are able to perceive and engage with them and in receiving this assistance. In the case of brother Jacob that I mentioned, his daughter that has discarnated before him, and that was the one that introduced him to spiritism, she was there to receive him. So the whole time that he was semi-conscious, he was exchanging impressions with the daughter. The daughter was helping him, talking to him. She was not in charge of the discarnation process. There were technicians doing that, but she was the one there to help him. Now, the fact that she's there, if he was in no condition of mentally connecting to her, she would be there, but he wouldn't be able to connect to her. So that's where, it's a combination of the moral intellectual knowledge that would allow us to be more prepared be more in acceptance of the fate and ready to move on. Because if we understand that it's just, this is natural, we have died, let's say, we have gone back to the spiritual world hundreds of times already, so it's just once more. If we are ready for that, the transition should be peaceful in a sense, okay? So Kardec, then let's go to the explanations by Kardec. He said that when death arrives, everything is chaotic at first. We know that. Because even if we are sick, the transition, the transition, it's a sudden transition, leaving the physical body. It's something that we've been living with for the past I don't know, many years, 60, 70, 80, 30, 40. So it's not an easy transition. But as we become more aware of our situation, aware of where we are, we, depending on how we behave, it's going to be an easier, a simpler process, okay? The memory of the past, Brother Jacob mentions in the book that that what we know, that my whole life flashed before my eyes, that many people say, especially near-death experience and things like that, it happened to him. It happens, really. Our past life flashes through our eyes in the moment of discarnation, yes. But it doesn't mean that, it's something that is painful, or it can be painful, it can be pleasure, it can be indifferent. Depends on how we face, how we lived our lives. That's why it's important to always live a positive life, a morally straight life as much as possible, as much as we can. Okay. We talked about violent death, right? That the spirit is in shock, and of course, something that we say here, right? Someone goes through a long disease, and we feel sorry for them because they have been suffering for a long time here in the physical world. Well, for those people, the transition is very easy, and they wake up on the other side much easier and much more prepared to face the reality of the spiritual life. For someone that dies a violent death or a suicide or an accident, then it's much harder because it's something unexpected. And for you, it's something unexpected happens. It takes some time for you to understand what happened. Many people that have accidents, they wake up in the spiritual world and they think they are in the hospital, that they are still alive, that they've been injured, and they talk about their physical body, they recognize their physical body. So they clearly cannot understand that the physical body has died, and in many cases, they cannot accept. You refuse to accept that your physical body has died, that you have died, you have gone back to the spiritual world. So until you accept that reality, you are going to struggle. You are going to be in a state of confusion. So it's going to take a while. Assistance is always there, but our acceptance of the assistance varies also, okay? And Kardec talks about somnambulists, hypnotized people. Somnambulists here, remember, when we talk about somnambulism in spiritism, it's not sleepwalking, it's a state of trance, right? Or hypnotized people that are, they don't believe that they are hypnotized. They act as they were normal, right? Normally living, right? So it's a comparison, an interesting comparison in terms of, because we compare it a lot with sleep. And, I think in French, sleep is, or dreaming, I don't know which one of two is small death, the literal translation, right? Mm-hmm. Someone remembers their French here, they can correct me.
More.
Sorry?
Petite mort.
petit mort, exactly. Yes, small death. Yeah. So in a sense, the reality is that the separation from the physical body and the spiritual body happens every day in our sleep, but we are not fully disconnected. We come back. So the death is a complete separation. So it's in a sense, it's a definite sleep, like we sometimes say here, right? But the difference is that we are back in the spiritual world, and the next step is to accept it and to start working on our recovery there. And finally, when Kardec talks about collective death, we are studying again in a group here that book, Planetary Transition, that you had that 280,000 people that died during the tsunami. And the explanation here is many people die together, but they are not aware of each other and of the accident. So they are all, each one of them is taking care of their own business. Its spirit goes its own way. Many are not even aware, most of them, that they have died. So the fact that they have died in a collective death is more work for the spiritual world, because they have more people that have to work there. And in the beginning of the book, Planetary Transition, Manuel Filomeno de Miranda talks about, from that colony that he was, a group of 200 spirits left to help and assist those discarnating. And that's only from one place, one colony. So you can imagine all over the world the number of spirits that were there in the area of the tsunami, helping that collective discarnation of 280,000 people. Again, for those that were not here last week, every day 160,000 people discarnate on Earth. Okay, so it's a very large number. And there is a spiritual assistance for each one of them, of the 160,000. The spirit being aware of the assistance is a completely different story. Okay, so that's it. I think I covered everything, but I don't know if anyone has any more questions, or Elmo, if you have anything to add here that I missed.
No, I think I covered everything. I'm sorry, I think I covered everything. I really like the comparison of waking up in the morning, the very first second something is foggy in your mind until you come to the realization, oh, I just woke up, it's time to go to work or something else. Now, just imagine if you travel and you are aware that you are traveling, you are aware that you're going somewhere else, you took the airplane, you went somewhere else, so you got a hotel and you go to sleep and you wake up in a different place, that period of fog of come back to your senses is a little bit longer than you wake up in one home, even aware that you traveled. Now imagine if you go to sleep on your bed with your usual pajamas or whatever you used to sleep with, and did not travel, did not go anywhere, but when you wake up in the morning, you are in a different place with a different set of pajamas. It puts you in a state of confusion, and if you have no understanding of spirituality, you will be perplexed, you will be lost, you will be afraid. All those things will be expected. And that is where the value of the intellectual understanding, purely intellectual understanding of our spiritual nature, that death is a transition. In reality, we, the spirit, we transit from point A to point B, regardless of our moral qualities. Only to have that intellectual factor, it is a positive, it is helpful. But the main and the most important thing is your moral qualities. It's basically what you do with that intellectual. Now, to whom much are given, more will be asked, right? So the more you know, the more responsible you are. Now, if you have the knowledge associated with the moral qualities, the transition will be very simple, even if it is an acute, unexpected death, an accident, lost bullet or whatever that you die suddenly without an expectation. Even that situation, that will you have that period of confusion? Even let's say if someone is well prepared and well enlightened and with such a long life, let's say like Divaldo Pereira Franco, if he has a absolute sudden death, he will go to a period of transition, but it will be very, very shortened because he has the knowledge and the moral values associated with that. So for those who does not have the knowledge and lacks the moral qualities, you don't expect the transition to be very complicated and the period of transition to be very prolonged. And not being accessible to help, or better put, not make yourself available for the help that is there for you, complicate things, and that goes with the moral qualities. That's why the moral qualities is so important.
Like Jussara says, always, right? If you find yourself in a completely confused state and you don't understand anything what's going on around you, pray.
That's right.
Pray that help will come.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Comments, questions? No?
And it's interesting, this thing of prayer is it's really significant because in our meetings, very often we ask Spirit, do you have a habit of praying? And I don't know, Jean, I think it's more than half would say no, right?
Yeah.
I think more than half, at least more than half would say, no, I don't have that habit, and no, I don't know how to pray.
Yeah. Yeah, true. And again, prayer here is sincerely speaking from the bottom of your heart.
Yep.
Because if you start repeating words and thinking about the dinner, that's not prayer, right?
Jan, I have a
Okay.
simple question.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, it's very simple. Like if we go back to what happened in Florida, Miami, when the building collapsed, they said there were a lot of young babies and toddlers that passed away. I know that for sure that they will be taken care of, but more or less, what does happen when you have, they go back just from the last existence or what?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Soraya. Thanks, because we didn't mention the discarnation of children here.
Yeah.
And what Elmo actually has a good definition of the self-awareness, right?
That's right.
So when a baby discarnates, the baby is not aware of itself yet.
Right.
So it very likely will go back to the previous spiritual body that he had before. Yeah. But an 8-year-old, which is already aware of their existence and their individuality, they discarnate as an 8-year-old. But there are places in the spiritual world that help and assist those children. Which book takes us there, Elmo? It's Between Heaven and Earth, that takes the mother to where her son is in the spiritual world.
Yeah, it's one.
I think it's. I'm not sure if it's.
Is it that? I'm not sure. I'm not gonna guess right now.
Yeah. So one of the André Luiz books, the mother that she lost a child, she's taken during her sleep to visit her son, that he was discarnated when he was like 8, 7, 9, 10. And she goes there. That's this colony for children. So these children, they will continue to grow in the spiritual world as they were supposed to grow here in the physical world. In the majority of the cases, again, a spirit that is already evolved came here on a mission for 8 years just to serve as an example, and then dies and goes back to the spiritual world, it very likely will go back to the previous spirit, adult form of spirit, because it doesn't need to go through the process of continue growing. It has already knowledge and understanding and moral evolution. But you know, an average kid that goes back to the spiritual world will go through the process of growing in the spiritual world as it was supposed to go through in the physical world.
Okay.
Anything to add here, Elmo?
Yeah, I think the most important, and that's, I think, in my opinion, is the level of self-identity. Once you identify yourself as a 7 years old who is very aware of yourself as a 7 years old, you will go back to the spiritual world with that identity of the 7 years old. And there is a book in psychography of Divaldo, don't remember the name also, in which a young person discarnate and continue this maturation in the physical world as if it was a child maturing here in the physical world. Continue going out 7 years old or doing what 7 years old does, and again 8, 9, going to the teenage years until it return to the spiritual world. Very often the spirits will return to the physical, have a reincarnation a little bit faster than someone who discarded at the old age.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And the assistance they receive is also different, right? Because an 8-year-old, they need more assistance. They need a more, and they have no, let's say, a fixed idea, guilty conscience, anything like that. It's unlikely, right? Because their mind here is not well developed. So they will receive the assistance and they will see the assistance because they are used to be helped. So they are open already here to be helped, because an 8-year-old doesn't live by itself. So because it's used to be helped here, it will be much more receptive to the assistance in the spiritual world, because it's taken care of like it's been taken care of here. Okay, that's also important to understand.
Okay.
Yeah. If you remember, yes, Carol.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you, actually.
No. I was just giving another example, but go ahead.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, just generally speaking, trauma of different levels or different degrees certainly would, it seems, to affect us in another incarnation. Where does that actually reside? There was something mentioned about, and I don't think I caught that, that it would not reside in the perispirit, but would it reside then in the mental body? I'm not so clear on the trauma aspect.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, that's a very good question. Also, Carrie, something important for us to mention, right? Because I actually, someone just asked this question recently. I was trying to remember, but anyways. So, oh, actually, yeah, it was on the lecture that we had last Saturday from Paulo Bispo, right? I actually asked the question to him. So when you damage your perispirit when you are consciously damaging your physical body. Okay, that's what you carry to your perispirit. When you have an accident, that is the name is an accident, you don't carry it to your spiritual body. Okay, so let's say you know, I lose an arm in an accident. I had no intention of losing my arm. It was an accident. My perispirit, it's when I go back to the spiritual world, my perispirit is perfect. I cut my arm intentionally because I, you know, in a I don't know, some crazy stunt or something like that. I don't lose my perispiritual arm, but I'll feel the effect of it in my spiritual body. My arm will be affected and can reflect in my new incarnation. Let's go to a clearer example, right? You drink here, excessively drink. You damage your liver. To drink is a conscious choice. The damage of the liver will reflect on your perispirit and will carry on if you don't repair it in different ways through your next physical body. That Elmo can talk better about the consequences of liver disease. So that's more or less how it works. Was that clear, Carol?
Yeah.
Yes, that's helpful. But there's also another issue that arises with issues from past generations in which theoretically we could inherit the traumas of our ancestors. We may not even be understanding of that, but they can appear in our incarnation. I've studied a little bit about it and read about it. So I find that very fascinating as well.
Can you give an example?
Well, people that perhaps have suffered through the Holocaust or have suffered traumas, religious
You froze.
persecutions, or as tribal issues that have remained within a group of people, difficult situations that they have endured through many past generations also can affect a current generation. So,
yeah, that may be the trauma that stayed with a person. So if you are traumatized by a past experience, you may carry it with you, but it's not the perispirit, it's a mental issue, right? You carry the trauma. That's different from carrying the damage to the physical body, to the perispirit, because of actions that you take in the present life. And again, it's important. Let's say you live in a city that is very polluted and you die because of a pulmonary disease. That probably is not going to reflect probably on the perispirit, because it's not really your fault, right? You had to live there, you had to work there, you couldn't make another choice. It's not your responsibility that the place you lived was polluted and caused you lung cancer, right? But so that's also, the more you know, the more responsible you are. If you are aware of what you are doing to your physical body, and more we are aware of the products that that can be harmful to us, the more you are going to carry the consequences of your acts of ignoring the risks.
Carol,
thank you. Yes.
Elmo, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not clear here. Are you suggesting that one person, one spirit, may carry responsibilities or consequences from the actions of someone else?
I don't understand your question. Sorry.
No, I understand what no, Elmo, I don't think she meant that. She meant that you're traumatized by the inheritance of what was done to your ancestors. Right. And that's what carries with you, not the direct consequences, something like that. That's what she mentioned. Or you are traumatized by having died in a Holocaust. And then you carry the mental disturbance or trauma to your next incarnation and affects your physical body. I think that's what she meant, right, Carol?
Yeah, yes, more along those lines. So it's
Okay.
sort of intergenerational, and you may have something that completely puzzles you, but it's nevertheless there, like kind of like like they call them like your inner dragon, or something that is really afflicting you, but it doesn't often make sense, but there seems to be a patterning in generation after generation after generation. It goes back more than one or two generations, so it's not easy to understand or comprehend,
But if
but it's still there.
but if one is living in that culture, uh, dealing with the consequences of that particular group or that particular culture, is because that one has some kind of involvement in that event, in that culture, one way or another. It's not something that is just um, by chance or just an association of the perispirit. Is something of the spirit itself, who has some kind of attachment, responsibility with whatever is happening with that specific group of individuals. That spirit is a part of that group, directly or indirectly, is a part of that group for a learner experience, or to have the opportunity of undo mistakes of the past.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
And,
Thank
and
Yes,
that,
Marilyn?
that's what makes it very likely that most of us will reincarnate sequentially among us somewhat the same group of spirits, because we have so much thing in common to work on.
Yeah, that seems to be the connection. Thank you.
Yes, Marilyn?
Thank you. My brother Don died of liver disease because of alcohol consumption. So did I understand it correctly that he'll have to come back and experience the same problem again?
Go ahead, Elmo.
It's very difficult and dangerous for us to make any kind of assumptions, and that comes the suggestion of Jesus Christ, do not judge, because we just don't know enough. We are like horses with those things on around in the side of the eyes. How do you call that again? That limit your angle of vision, right? We are very limited in what we can perceive, and the divine laws is very ample and take everything into consideration. So for us to make presumption that someone who live a life like such will have a reincarnation like X, or you have to do this and these things, we really don't know. We make all kinds of presumptions, but we don't really know. What Jerome said is, let's say, the example of individuals who create lung damage. Well, if I choose to smoke today, 2021, 3 packs a day, I have no excuse. There is no way that you can escape the reality, because even in the cigarette package, it says right there that this thing is not good for you. You choose to do it. A lot of people choose to do it. Perhaps someone listen to this right now does it. You're making a decision, you're making a choice, and that's fine. Now, when you make decisions, you make choices, you carry responsibilities to that. Okay. And if you create enough damage to your lungs during this incarnation, self-inflicted, by making a choice of smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day because you want, there will be one kind of consequence to that. The damage caused to the lungs will be imprinted in the part of the perispirit that deals with the respiratory system and will carry over for the next reincarnation. Now, let's assume that someone else here today, 2021, smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day, but it is a schizophrenic, and the only peace of mind that person does in his mind is when he's blowing smoke. And that's why you see, even in some, I don't know if it still does, but even recently in some psychiatric institution, they would allow some patients to smoke because it was the only thing that really works for them. Some effect of the nicotine, I'm not sure what it is, but it helps them. The consequence will be different. This individual has a psychiatric condition that leads it to desire to smoke. That's the only piece that he had. That will be a different set of consequences. Someone who works, let's say, in the coal mines in Bolivia, let's say, and is exposed themselves to the black lung disease, the silicosis, and they would die a horrible, difficult death. And his grandparent died of this, his father died of this, his uncles died of this. He knows he's gonna get it. But if you want to bring milk to the kid at home, he's gonna have to go and work in that mine. He will have a different, and he will damage his lungs considerably with silicosis. The consequences, very spiritual. The consequences when this body dies will be different for the one who smoked the 3 packs a day. Who is more responsible for that guy dying of silicosis at the age of 33 with black lung disease? Him or the multinational billionaire factory who knows exactly what's going on, who could provide the proper protection for those individuals, but does not do it when it costs a little bit of money? Who is more responsible? Who's going to carry the greater responsibility of all those deaths? So it's very complex. So for us to try to guess or to have a presumption of how's going to the consequence that is going to be, because one, the law is benevolent, and the law is not punitive but instructive, and we are too ignorant to make those measurements. So you got an alcoholic over here who is destroying the lung, the liver with alcoholic cirrhosis. The consequences will be different for each one of those. Taking everything in consideration, things that we can see and the trillion things that we cannot see. Because what you can see is only the very tip of the iceberg, right? But the reality is much, much, much bigger. It's submerged and we don't have an idea of it.
Yes, and just to complement, we are late already. If you think of André Luiz in the book Nosso Lar, he's there in the lower zones, died because of a cancer as a consequence of syphilis. So a lot of damage in the physical body that carries on to the perispirit. And later in the other books, we don't see any consequences. So did he carry to the next incarnation? Probably not, because he evolved enough in the spiritual world not to carry it. We don't know. Again, each one is each one. But you can make amends in the spiritual world. You can fix your own perispirit in the spiritual world and almost eliminate or partially eliminate the consequences for your new physical body. But if you don't do anything in the spiritual world, then yes, you're going to carry to your physical. There is more chance of you carrying to the new physical body. Okay. All right, but we have to stop here. So next week we start talking about reincarnation, multiple lives, because of course we went back to the spiritual world. Now we have to come back and start a new journey, a new reincarnation. And that's what we are going to discuss starting next week, multiple lives, chapter 4. Okay, let me stop sharing here. So this Saturday, we have the lecture. It's going to be a very interesting one. It's from Rejane Planner from Austria. She's the co-founder and vice chair of the Spiritist Studies Allan Kardec in Vienna. And she's a writer and a poet. And she's an electrical and nuclear engineer with a master degree in nuclear engineering from the Military Engineering Institute, IME, in Rio. And she's going to talk to us about mysteries of the universe. I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting lecture. Don't miss it this Saturday, 10 a.m. Okay. This Sunday, it's the third Sunday of the month. So we're going to study On the Way to the Light. And we are just after Kardec started here the work of Spiritism. So we're going to talk a little bit about it. Okay. And so Carol, can you do our final prayer? Thanks.
Sure. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, First Cause, we are grateful again to be together to share our studies of the Gospel according to Spiritism, our chapter about the return to the spirit world. We are grateful to be together, that we can share, we can discuss, we can learn, we can receive the gleanings in which are so vital to us to help us to go forward. And as we return to the spirit world, perhaps it will lessen the confusion, or it will give us a little bit more understanding of the situation that we will incur when we arrive there. We are not afraid, for when we study, this empowers us, this helps us, this gives us a much greater understanding, for which we are truly grateful. We give thanks and we are grateful to our spiritual benefactors, to the good spirits, the mentors, the helpers and healers who are with us, guiding us as we do our part. We are grateful to be together in unity and to share what we are learning together. It's very vital. We are grateful for all we have received mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. As we continue throughout the week, may we do so in studying and refining our prayers from the heart. May we do so with a greater depth of understanding and a greater heartfelt assurance that we are doing our part. As we close this portion of the meeting tonight, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we go forth to family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. For we are never alone. There is always help. There is always assistance, again, as we do our part. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us. And we know that to do so means to be able to share charity, which is our love in action. We are grateful, truly grateful. And as we close now, may we remind ourselves to be beacons of light and go forth now in peace. So be it.